I retired at 55 with $600,000 in my TSP. What do I need to do next? This is how the conversation started with a newer client of ours. And I think a lot of decisions like this have been made recently. Decision to leave federal service and figure out what comes next. Are we okay? What are our choices? What options do we have moving forward? In this video, we're going to take a look at this federal employee's financial situation, including building out a retirement income worksheet, as well as illustrating the options they have moving forward. And hopefully in this process, we're going to uncover some things that maybe they missed that could benefit you on your journey towards retirement. Hey guys, I'm Justin and we build retirement plans for federal employees. Been doing this work for about 20 years. And I want to dig into this case study. First, I want to give you a little bit of background on our client. Let's call him Mitch. Okay. Mitch is a federal employee with 24 years of service. He's a GS-13 Step 8 living in Washington, D.C. Salary is around $148,000 a year. His MRA is age 57. He accepted the deferred resignation offer in combination with Vera earlier this year. So his retirement date's coming up here at the end of September. Mitch is married to Maria. She's 54. She works for a government contractor, loves her work, unsure about job security, would like to continue working as long as she can in this current position. She makes around $75,000 a year. And her benefits include a 401k plan. Now, Mitch kind of hit the wall earlier this year and just decided he was done. He was going to take the DRP and be done with it and move on, figure it out from there. And while he did run the projections on what his current federal benefits look like, he didn't really do any scenario planning, looking into the future, trying to weigh opportunity costs. And for Mitch, I mentioned his MRA is 57. So the next retirement date for him, without accepting this Vera and DRP offer at 55, would be at age 57, or his minimum retirement age, under MRA plus 10. And that would mean he could retire, but it would come with reduced benefits if he wanted to take them immediately, or he could postpone, which also creates some challenges when it comes to continuing health coverage for families. Not to mention if you need the pension income after you retire. The first available retirement date for Mitch where he could go out with full unreduced benefits would be age 60 with 20 years of service, because he's not going to hit 30 years until after he's age 60. So that would be his next opportunity, which is about a 5-year window. These factors played into the decision, along with just being less than happy with what's happening in the federal workforce and his specific agency. Now, Mitch and Maria's balance sheet looks like this. They've got about $25,000 in savings. Maria has about $185,000 in her 401k plan. Mitch has that $600,000 in TSP funds. They've got $450,000 in home equity, and they have about $250,000 on a mortgage left. No other debt on the balance sheet. So things look pretty good from that standpoint. They've got good income. As I mentioned, household income is around $220,000, $225,000 a year. So strong financial position. We'll see how that changes as Mitch transitions into retirement, leaving federal work. So I want to start out with the retirement income worksheet, looking at the projected expenses. Okay. So we're going to work backwards on this because Mitch and Maria don't have a detailed budget. So this was a little bit of a work in progress to get to something that we could work with. So as I mentioned, they make around $220,000 a year. I know their current tax bracket is 22%. Their effective rate comes out to be around 16% for federal taxes. So they pay around $30,000 a year in federal taxes. They also pay around $10,000 a year in state taxes in Virginia. So I'm going to take those two things as deductions off of their annual gross income. I'm also going to take their savings amounts. So currently what they're contributing, Mitch makes max contributions to the TSP without catch up. So $23,500 a year is what he's contributing. And Maria's currently put about $15,000 into her 401k. So when I take all those deductions, savings and taxes off, that gives me around $141,500 a year. And if I break that out on a monthly basis, that's between $11,000 and $12,000 a month. Now, looking at their monthly expenses, really what we know the big ones are the mortgage, about $3,500 a month, property and local taxes, about $600 a month. The rest, we're just assuming they're spending the rest of their cash flow that they're not saving. It's going to lifestyle expenses, fixed expenses that they need to spend on. So that's kind of how we can back into this number. So $11,000 a month is a pretty heavy lift. Can they get there in terms of the retirement income? Is there room to reduce this? Talking to Mitch and Maria, they feel there's some wiggle room there, maybe getting down to $9,000 or so in annual expenses, but that's kind of a heavy lift. If we look at it on a percentage basis, it's a pretty big number. So let's go ahead and take a look at their retirement income sources. The first one on our list is going to be the FERS pension. Now with Mitch going out, retiring under Vera, DRP, he's going to have access to his FERS pension right away. 24 years of service, he's got a 1% multiplier. We ran the historical data on his salary. That got us to $144,116 as his high 3. That gives me a first pension of $34,588. If I take the 10% reduction for a survivor benefit, which they want the full benefit for Maria, that brings it down to $31,129 a year. Okay, so that's what we're working with the FERS basic annuity. Keep in mind, no cost of living adjustments on this thing until we hit age 62. So that's where this thing is going to stay. If we do a quick analysis on the cost of living adjustment over the next 7 years, assuming a 2.5% rate of inflation, that $31,000, the purchasing power of it drops down to around $26,000 and change. That's what you might expect the impact of inflation to be. Now, didn't mention this earlier, Mitch just kind of hit the wall and was done. He didn't do any projections looking at what the future might hold if he's stuck with his federal job. And I think that's important to do. And so let's take a look at the numbers at age 60, which would really be the next age where he could claim full benefits without any reduction. So give him an additional 5 years of service. We're going to assume his salary bumps up 2% a year, no grade or step increases. So that takes our high 3 up to $160,996. Times 29 years, we're still at a 1% multiplier. That now gives me a pension of $46,689 a year. If I take the 10% survivor benefit off that, we're at $42,020 a year. So about a 35% difference over that 5-year time period in terms of what you can expect from the FERS pension income, what he could have expected from the FERS pension. That also gets him 2 years closer to cost of living adjustments kicking in, reducing the impact on his purchasing power. I think that's an important thing just to address so we know where we stand when we're doing these kind of comparisons. Now, the decision's been made for Mitch. He feels good about it. He's going to deal with it and kind of sort through things from here. But having that perspective is something that you're going to want to do if you're working through these numbers. There's also a special retirement supplement he'll be eligible for starting at age 57. That comes out to be about $1,380 a month or $16,560 a year. Now, there's a 2-year gap, right? So we got a window here that we got to plan without that because it will not kick in until he turns age 57. That number also would have increased to about $1,667 a month with the same pay increases, an additional 5 years of service had he waited until age 60 to go out. And that benefit would have started right away at age 60. Keep in mind, the SRS runs potentially from your MRA until age 62 when it ends for most federal employees. We've got Social Security benefits to consider, one for each of them. They will not kick in until 62. So again, there's a 7-year gap here that we're looking at before we can start looking at when might make sense to take these benefits. Right now, Mitch is estimated to be $2,300 a month. Maria is at $1,600 a month. Mitch has the TSP, $600,000 balance in it. Now, he could access this under the rule of 55 since he's going out at or after the age of 55. His TSP is all pre-tax, of course. So he could take about $24,000 if he's stuck to a 4% distribution rate to complement retirement income. This one's a little tricky. This really increases some of the risks to your income strategy the earlier you take money from a retirement portfolio, something we want to avoid if possible. Sequence of returns as well as opportunity costs play pretty big here. And then the last thing we'll include on the retirement income worksheet right now is the spouse income, because Maria is planning to continue working as long as she can, several more years. She enjoys what she's doing and she makes about $75,000 a year. So if I add those things up, the FERS pension, potential TSP income, and Maria's salary, I'm talking about $131,000 or so. Now, let's say from that $131,000, we lose about 20 grand to taxes. Brings us down to $110,000 a year. On a monthly basis, that puts us at $9,116 a month. So that's below the expenses we were estimating of, currently spending 11 grand, but it is kind of in line with what they were thinking. Maybe they could get down to around 9 grand a month in expenses. So it's close. But keep in mind, it also includes TSP distributions coming from the account, which is something we'd like to avoid if possible. So at this point, you're looking at a situation that's pretty tight. One other thing I want to talk about before we discuss the options moving forward is the opportunity cost to their retirement accounts. Okay. So I mentioned, kind of alluded that if you can delay taking money from TSP, the longer the better, of course, right? And for Mitch here, the same rings true. Now, if he was to just not touch his TSP, let's give it a 5-year window here. So let's say Mitch doesn't touch his TSP. The opportunity cost here illustrate how things can grow. 600 grand, let's say he makes 7% over the next 5 years, that account grows to 841,000 and change. Okay. If he doesn't touch it and he's able to make contributions, let's say he puts 23.5 in it a year, same thing he's doing now, makes 7%, that account grows to almost $1 million, $986,000 and change. That changes the 4% distribution amount too, right? Same thing we want to illustrate with Maria's 401k. So if Mitch quits working here and doesn't go back and doesn't get another job, she's likely not going to be able to make contributions to her 401k. Okay. So Now that's sitting there at $185,000. Let's say she makes 7% a year over the next 5 years. That amount would grow to $259,472. So decent growth there. But if she's able to make this even a $10,000 contribution over the next 5 years, 7%, now the account's up to $321. Okay, so it makes a difference. And you're talking about income swings here when looking at the 4% distribution off those different balances. So you're adding step by step to the amount of retirement income you can draw sustainably. So I think some of these opportunity costs, the cost of living adjustments, the reduced growth potential, the sequence of returns are all some risks that really need to be considered and weighed pretty heavily when making this kind of decision. For Mitch and Maria, this is workable, but it's tight. So the best option is probably for Mitch to find employment, which I think he wants to do. It was just kind of hit the wall with this federal job and wanted to transition into what's next. So whether that's an encore career where he can make income similar to what he's making now, whether it's a passion project that still brings significant income into the house, but maybe not quite the same level as what he currently makes, or just find something to contribute to the household needs. We know there's a delta there. We want to avoid taking out the money from the TSP, so 24 grand, and then maybe there's another $25,000 that we need to make up. So if Mitch can kind of find something in the $40,000 to $50,000 range, maybe that helps take some of the pressure off the plan, allows them not to touch investments, let them grow a little bit longer. So those would really be the best options. Of course, he has the option to just not work. And, maybe there will be a period of time where it's a little more difficult to find employment just based on what's happening in the job market. Mitch is pretty marketable, got great skills and experience. So I don't think that's going to be the case for him, but you got to plan for that as well. And in the case that he's not able to go back to work, it's just going to put some pressure on the plan. So think about taking distributions from the TSP or potentially reducing their spending footprint however they can. Threw a lot of information there, but this is the type of work that you need to do when you're considering going out. And then there's more to it than this when you're actually building a holistic plan. But this is a great starting point, looking at that retirement income worksheet, expenses versus income, looking at the opportunity costs and some of the other risks that exist out there. So threw a lot at you. I hope you found some value here, something useful that you can take and use in your own plan. If you're working on something like this, remember, you don't have to do this alone. Please feel free to use us as a resource. We love to hear your questions, love to hear what you're working on. So please reach out, let us know. If you found some value here, please give us a like and a subscribe, and we'll see you next time.